The next time you crack open a cold beer after a long day, you might want to think twice about what you're actually drinking. Major beer companies have been hiding a dirty secret that would shock millions of loyal customers who think they're just enjoying a simple alcoholic beverage made from hops, barley, and water. The truth is far more disturbing. Current and former brewery workers are breaking their silence about which popular beer brands contain ingredients that have absolutely nothing to do with traditional brewing. We're talking about chemicals found in industrial applications, pesticides banned in other countries, and artificial additives that could require cancer warning labels. The brewing industry has convinced Americans that mass-produced beer represents authentic craftsmanship, when the reality is chemical cocktails designed for maximum profit margins. You walk into any bar or grocery store expecting beer to be a straightforward product. 4 basic ingredients have been used for centuries: water, hops, yeast, and malted grains. What you're actually getting from major manufacturers is a laboratory experiment containing over 75 different chemicals, dyes, and additives that companies aren't required to disclose. The wholesome marketing is brilliant deception hiding industrial food science. The regulatory loophole is intentional. Unlike every other consumable product with expiration dates, beer companies face 0 federal requirements to list ingredients on their labels. This allows brewers to add whatever chemicals they want while keeping consumers completely in the dark about what they're consuming. You have more transparency buying processed lunch meat than you do purchasing beer from major brands. Today, I'm exposing the 7 worst beer brands that contain ingredients no one should be drinking, plus 3 alternatives that are actually safe. From carcinogenic coloring agents to genetically modified corn syrup to pesticide residues that accumulate in your body, these popular brands represent everything wrong with industrial brewing. And stick around until the end, because we've got bonus information about contamination levels that will shock you, especially when you realize how widespread these problems have become. The bonus revelations about glyphosate contamination found in nearly every mainstream brand will change how you think about beer forever. Once you understand what brewery insiders know about ingredient sourcing and manufacturing shortcuts, you'll never shop the same way again. Number 7. Corona Extra. This imported Mexican lager markets itself as a premium beach beer perfect for relaxation and good times. Behind the lime wedge and clear bottle lies a cocktail of genetically modified ingredients that have nothing to do with traditional brewing methods. Corona contains GMO corn syrup as a primary ingredient, not traditional malted barley that authentic lagers require. The corn syrup gives Corona its light body and mild flavor, but it's derived from genetically modified corn that's been engineered in laboratories. You're drinking the product of genetic manipulation, not agricultural tradition. The corn syrup isn't just any sweetener. It's high fructose corn syrup made from genetically modified corn that's been processed with enzymes and chemicals to alter its molecular structure. This industrial sweetener is cheaper than traditional brewing grains, allowing Corona to maximize profit margins while deceiving consumers about ingredient quality. Corona's parent company admits their use of GMO ingredients when pressed by investigators. Their official statement acknowledges that corn syrups may be derived from a mixture of conventional and biotechnology corn. That's corporate speak for we use whatever genetically modified corn is cheapest without caring about long-term health impacts. The manufacturing process involves more corn than barley, meaning you're drinking a corn-based alcoholic beverage disguised as beer. Traditional lagers use malted barley as the primary fermentable sugar source. Corona uses genetically modified corn because it's significantly cheaper and produces consistent flavor profiles across massive production runs. The clear bottle creates additional problems. Unlike brown bottles that protect beer from light damage, Corona's clear glass allows ultraviolet light to break down hop compounds, creating off flavors and reducing whatever quality existed originally. You're paying premium imported beer prices for GMO corn syrup and packaging that degrades the product. Number 6. Newcastle Brown Ale. This British import has built a reputation as a sophisticated choice for beer enthusiasts who appreciate traditional English brewing. The reality is, Newcastle contains one of the most controversial food additives in the industry, a carcinogenic coloring agent that could require cancer warning labels. Traditional brown ales get their color from toasted malted barley that's been kilned at specific temperatures to develop rich, caramel-like flavors and deep amber hues. Newcastle shortcuts this process by using artificial caramel coloring manufactured through chemical processes that create carcinogenic compounds. The caramel coloring in Newcastle is Class 3 and 4 caramel color, manufactured by heating ammonia and sulfites under high pressure. This industrial process creates compounds that have been linked to liver tumors, lung tumors, and thyroid tumors in laboratory studies. You're drinking a known carcinogen every time you consume Newcastle. California's Proposition 65 requires warning labels on products containing ingredients known to cause cancer. If Newcastle were required to list ingredients like other food products, it would likely need cancer warning labels because the caramel coloring contains 4-methylamidazole, a compound that causes tumors in animal studies. The irony is that Newcastle markets itself as authentic British brewing tradition when authentic brown ales never required artificial coloring. Traditional brewing methods produce natural color variations through careful malt selection and kilning processes. Newcastle uses chemicals because consistent appearance across millions of bottles is more important than authentic brewing or consumer safety. Former brewery workers report that artificial coloring agents are added during final processing stages, meaning the beer's appearance is engineered rather than earned through proper brewing techniques. You're paying premium prices for industrial shortcuts disguised as traditional craftsmanship. Number 5. Miller Lite. This pioneering light beer launched the entire reduced-calorie beer category and remains one of America's most popular choices. Behind the marketing about great taste and fewer calories lies a formula built on genetically modified corn syrup and industrial brewing shortcuts. Miller Lite was among the first mainstream American beers to use high-fructose corn syrup as a primary ingredient, setting the template that other mass-market brewers would follow. The corn syrup provides fermentable sugars while reducing production costs, but it's made from genetically modified corn that's been chemically processed. The high-fructose corn syrup in Miller Lite isn't just any sweetener. It's derived from genetically modified corn that's been treated with enzymes to convert cornstarch into fructose. This industrial process creates a product that didn't exist in nature until food scientists developed it for processed food manufacturing. Miller Coors, the company behind Miller Lite, openly admits their use of GMO ingredients when questioned by investigators. Their official response states that corn syrup gives beer a milder and lighter-bodied flavor, and that corn syrups may be derived from a mixture of conventional and biotech corn. They're acknowledging GMO use while downplaying health concerns. The brewing process involves more genetically modified corn than traditional malted barley, meaning Miller Lite is fundamentally a corn-based alcoholic beverage that's been marketed as beer. Traditional lagers rely on malted barley for fermentable sugars and flavor development. Miller Lite uses GMO corn because it's cheaper and produces predictable results across massive production volumes. The light beer category itself represents a fundamental departure from traditional brewing. Instead of using quality ingredients and proper brewing techniques to create naturally lighter beers, mass-market brewers add water and corn syrup to reduce calories while maintaining alcohol content. You're paying for diluted beer enhanced with genetically modified industrial sweeteners. Number 4. Budweiser. America's self-proclaimed king of beers has built an empire on patriotic marketing and claims of traditional brewing heritage. The reality is, Budweiser contains dextrose derived from genetically modified corn, artificial ingredients, and manufacturing processes that prioritize efficiency over quality. Budweiser uses dextrose as a primary fermentable sugar source instead of traditional malted barley. Dextrose is a simple sugar derived from corn that's been processed to remove complex carbohydrates and proteins that contribute to beer flavor and body. You're drinking corn sugar alcohol rather than authentic beer made from brewing grains. The dextrose comes from genetically modified corn that's been engineered to produce higher yields and resist herbicides. This laboratory-created corn is then processed using industrial methods to extract simple sugars for fermentation. The entire process removes Budweiser from traditional brewing practices that built beer's reputation over centuries. Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser's parent company, operates industrial brewing facilities designed for maximum efficiency rather than quality craftsmanship. The brewing process involves precise timing and temperature controls optimized for consistent results across millions of barrels, not for developing complex flavors that traditional brewing methods create. The rice addition in Budweiser's formula further distances it from authentic beer ingredients. Rice is used as an adjunct grain to lighten the body and reduce production costs. While some traditional brewing styles incorporate rice, Budweiser uses it primarily for economic reasons rather than flavor enhancement. The marketing emphasizes American tradition and brewing heritage, but the ingredients and methods represent industrial food science rather than brewing craftsmanship. You're paying premium prices for mass-produced corn and rice alcohol that's been engineered for consistency and profit margins rather than quality or authenticity. Icity. Number 3. Coors Light. The Silver Bullet markets itself as the coldest-tasting beer with Rocky Mountain spring water purity. Former brewery workers reveal that Coors Light contains corn syrup derived from genetically modified sources and manufacturing processes that contradict the clean mountain imagery used in advertising campaigns. Coors Light relies heavily on corn syrup to achieve its light body and neutral flavor profile. This corn syrup comes from genetically modified corn that's been processed using industrial enzymes to break down complex starches into fermentable sugars. The Rocky Mountain branding suggests natural purity, but the primary ingredients are laboratory-engineered crops. The corn syrup isn't traditional brewing sugar derived from malted grains. It's high-fructose corn syrup that's been chemically modified to enhance fermentation efficiency and reduce production costs. Traditional brewing methods develop sugars naturally through malting processes that convert grain starches over time. Coors shortcuts this with instant corn-derived sweeteners. Molson Coors, the company behind Coors Light, has acknowledged their use of biotech corn when pressed by food safety investigators. Their corporate response admits that corn syrups may contain genetically modified ingredients while emphasizing that these additives are government-approved. Government approval doesn't address long-term health impacts of consuming GMO ingredients regularly. The brewing process prioritizes speed and consistency over traditional flavor development. Large-scale fermentation tanks process thousands of gallons simultaneously using precise temperature controls and artificial additives to ensure identical taste across every batch. You're drinking the product of industrial efficiency rather than brewing artistry. The mountain spring water marketing is particularly misleading because water quality becomes irrelevant when the primary ingredients are processed corn syrups and artificial additives. Traditional brewers understand that water quality affects every aspect of beer flavor, but industrial brewers can mask water deficiencies with chemical additives and processing shortcuts. Number 2. Pabst Blue Ribbon. This hipster favorite has experienced a cultural renaissance among younger drinkers who view it as an authentic alternative to corporate mega brands. The irony is crushing because PBR contains the same genetically modified corn syrup and industrial additives as the mainstream beers it's supposedly rejecting. Pabst Blue Ribbon uses corn syrup derived from genetically modified sources as a primary ingredient, identical to the mass-market beers that craft beer enthusiasts typically avoid. The blue-collar branding and vintage packaging create the illusion of authentic brewing tradition, but the ingredients represent modern industrial food science. The corn syrup provides fermentable sugars while reducing production costs, allowing Pabst to maintain competitive pricing against other budget beers. Traditional brewing requires malted barley that's been carefully processed to develop complex sugars and flavors. PBR uses GMO corn syrup because it's cheaper and produces predictable results. Former brewery workers report that PBR's manufacturing process involves the same industrial shortcuts used by major corporate brewers. Large batch fermentation, artificial additives for consistency, and processing methods designed for efficiency rather than quality craftsmanship. The rebellious image contradicts the corporate manufacturing reality. The cultural positioning as an alternative to mainstream corporate beer is pure marketing manipulation. PBR is produced using identical ingredients and methods as Budweiser, Miller, and Coors, just with different packaging and messaging targeted at consumers seeking authenticity. You're drinking the same industrial beer with hipster branding. The pricing strategy exploits consumer psychology by positioning PBR as a working-class beer that's somehow more honest than expensive alternatives. The reality is, you're paying for genetically modified corn alcohol with artificial additives, just like every other mass-market brand, but with added irony tax for the cultural positioning. Number 1. Any beer containing glyphosate contamination. This represents the most widespread and concerning issue affecting nearly every mainstream beer brand. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup weed killer, classified as a probable carcinogen by international health organizations, and it's contaminating beer supplies at alarming levels. Studies conducted across multiple countries have found glyphosate residues in virtually every conventional beer tested. A comprehensive German study detected glyphosate in every single beer sample analyzed. Similar research in Latvia reached identical conclusions. American studies by consumer advocacy groups found glyphosate contamination in popular brands including Budweiser, Heineken, and Coors. The contamination occurs because farmers spray glyphosate directly on barley and wheat crops before harvest to accelerate drying and increase yields. This pre-harvest application means glyphosate residues are incorporated directly into the grains used for beer production. You're consuming weed killer every time you drink contaminated beer. Glyphosate exposure has been linked to hormone disruption, thyroid problems, developmental issues, and increased cancer risk, even at extremely low doses. Research suggests that just 1 part per trillion can stimulate breast cancer cell growth and disrupt endocrine systems. The accumulation of glyphosate in human bodies means regular beer consumption contributes to chronic exposure. 4 out of 5 Americans now have detectable glyphosate levels in their bodies, according to biomonitoring studies. Beer consumption represents a significant exposure pathway because glyphosate concentrates during the brewing process as water evaporates and alcohol concentrations increase. Regular beer drinkers are unknowingly consuming carcinogenic herbicide residues. The contamination extends beyond conventional beers to some organic brands, though at significantly lower levels. This demonstrates how pervasive glyphosate has become in agricultural systems and food supply chains. Even products marketed as natural or premium can contain residues from environmental contamination. The 3 safest beer options represent breweries that have committed to transparency, organic ingredients, and traditional brewing methods that avoid harmful additives and contamination sources. Peak Organic Brewing Company stands out as the only brand tested that showed no detectable glyphosate residues. This Portland, Maine brewery sources ingredients directly from certified organic farms and maintains strict quality controls throughout production. Their Happy Hour Pilsner and Slim Hazy IPA demonstrate that clean brewing is possible when companies prioritize consumer health over profit margins. German beers brewed under the Reinheitsgebot purity law offer another reliable option, but only for domestic German consumption. The historic beer purity law restricts ingredients to water, hops, yeast, and malted grains, prohibiting artificial additives and chemical processing aids. However, German beers exported to America can contain the same industrial additives as domestic brands. Certified organic breweries represent the safest category because USDA organic standards prohibit genetically modified ingredients, synthetic pesticides, and harmful chemical additives. Breweries like Lakefront, Aslan, and Samuel Smith must adhere to strict certification requirements that ensure ingredient purity and environmental responsibility. The organic certification process requires rigorous documentation and third-party verification of every ingredient source. These breweries must prove their barley, wheat, and hops come from farms that haven't used synthetic pesticides or genetically modified seeds for at least 3 years. You're guaranteed transparency and ingredient purity when companies stake their certification on clean sourcing. Craft breweries following traditional methods offer additional safety. because they typically source ingredients from smaller suppliers who maintain direct relationships with farms. These brewers often know exactly which fields their grains come from and can verify growing practices personally. The smaller scale allows for quality control that's impossible with industrial sourcing networks. The pricing reflects actual ingredient costs rather than marketing budgets and executive compensation packages. Organic and craft beers cost more because quality ingredients are expensive and traditional brewing methods require time and skilled labor. You're paying for authentic craftsmanship instead of subsidizing advertising campaigns that deceive consumers about product quality. Regional craft breweries deserve special consideration because they often source ingredients locally, reducing transportation time and contamination risks. Fresh hops and recently harvested grains produce superior flavors while minimizing exposure to storage chemicals and preservation treatments used for ingredients shipped across continents. The brewing philosophy makes the difference. Companies focused on profit maximization will always choose cheaper ingredients and faster processing methods. Breweries committed to brewing excellence invest in quality ingredients and traditional techniques that take longer but produce superior results. Employee training reflects these priorities. Industrial breweries train workers to operate machinery and follow precise timing schedules optimized for efficiency. Craft breweries teach actual brewing skills, ingredient evaluation, and quality assessment that ensures every batch meets standards rather than just meeting production quotas. The fermentation processes reveal fundamental differences. Mass-market brewers use accelerated fermentation with artificial temperature controls and chemical additives to reduce production time from weeks to days. Traditional brewers allow natural fermentation processes that develop complex flavors over extended periods without rushing or forcing results. You've now learned the truth about what's really in your beer. 7 mainstream brands hiding industrial chemicals, genetically modified corn syrup, carcinogenic coloring agents, and pesticide contamination behind wholesome marketing campaigns. 3 clean alternatives proving that authentic brewing is still possible when companies prioritize your health over profit margins. The choice is yours, but now you can make it with complete transparency about what you're actually consuming.